Hi guys, it's Kian. So it's been a long time since I've done a chit chat video. Today I thought I'll sit down with my dolls, one of each size, from 75 cm, 65 cm, 60 cm to 42 cm. So kind of like a representative of each size. And I'm gonna talk about the pros and cons of each size, as well as what I like about them and a bit about my favorite size of dolls. So for anyone who's already familiar with the BJD sizes, this would just be me talking about my personal preference for the different sizes. For anyone who's not particularly familiar with maybe some of these sizes of BJDs, perhaps this can be also kind of like a introduction / comparison to sort of let you see how the different sizes look next to each other. So I'm gonna start by introducing the dolls as well as their sizes, the head and body sculpts, to just kind of give you a rough idea. So first of all, we have this guy. He is a easy stage Dante head on an Ipo House HID body. So together he is about 74 to 75 cm tall. And for 75 body, this is considered one of the more muscular bodies. And he is quite a bit heavier than other bodies. So you can see the way I usually carry my dolls is I wrap my hands around their waist and I just lift them up. But this guy is too big for me to do that comfortably. So I kind of have to do this, or I have to hold him with both hands. The next one, this guy, is Vi. So Vi is my dear boy Hobin head on a doll family A 65 cm body. The third boy here is Gabby. So Gabby is a Lutz / CP leash boy head on a CP Delft Type 3 body, so he is about 60 cm tall. And the last one, who's a bit far for me to reach right now, but that's the only girl I have in my crew, that's Pebbles. So she's a Unoa Lilin sleeping faceplate that has been modified to have slightly open eyes, and she's on a Unoa 1.5 body, which means it's a 1/4 size doll body. So she's a 1/4 size doll. He's considered a 1/3, I guess. 65 cm doll bodies are also considered 1/3. And then this is 75 cm, which is also sometimes called uncle size. But I'll be cautious of using the word uncle size, especially if you're trying to find like doll clothes and things like that, because it can refer to a wide variety of sizes, going from something like 70 cm to 75 cm, and 70 cm it could be a slim body like the Lutz SSDF type of body, or even like the Hound body, which is really slim, all the way to like a taller but still slim body like maybe an Idealan 75, all the way up to like this guy who is very buff, and there's also other companies that do buff bodies like this. So uncle is kind of like a very wide term. So these are the dolls of different sizes that I currently have. I also used to have one that is smaller than her. So I also used to have a YoSD who is a 1/6 size, but I no longer have that doll, and yep. So I wanted to talk about doll sizes and also what's my favorite doll size. I'm gonna start by saying the one third, so like 60 to 65 cm doll size is my favorite. And it's a whole combination of factors, but mainly it's just that they're the most convenient to hold, not too heavy like this guy, and they are relatively easy to buy clothes for. And I think the main reason is really just the type of dolls that I like, and the kind of like characters that I have. I do tend to prefer like this kind of youthful, like youthful man boy look rather than the more mature one. And I don't really have like smaller, like younger characters where I would need to shell in like smaller forms like 1/4 or 1/6. So that's why the generic like 1/3 size is my favorite. But let's talk a little bit about the different sizes. Let's start with the 1/6 size, which is a size that I don't have here, but I'll put a picture on screen of the 1/6 that I did have. So 1/6 is even smaller than her, probably sitting around like this size. The good thing about 1/6 is that they are pocket size, so it's very easy to just pack them into like your bag, your backpack, even like a small sling bag, as long as you put them in like maybe a pouch or something with some soft cushion and a face, like a face mask protector. You can kind of bring them around easily, which is, she's okay, but the rest of them you can't really just like bring out so easily. A 1/6 also sits within my palm, so it's really a very easy size to carry, not very heavy either. The downside to me for 1/6 dolls are that, first of all, like I said, I don't really have an OC that's so young. And besides Cypher, which is the YoSD that I had before that, right? And he's getting reshout into the same size as Pebbles, which is like the 40 something cm size. So the other downside for me, because I don't sew the majority of my clothes, I buy clothes for them, that the USD is kind of difficult to buy clothes for because of, one, the style, and two, the fact that my USD is a boy. There seems to be more female USD clothes, I think, and generally in a more like skirts, dresses kind of, yeah. Whereas the kind of style that I'm looking for is kind of like a post-apocalyptic world, which is quite difficult to find, and then to try and find it in a male USD size is very difficult. So that is why I eventually sold my USD, and the version 2 of him is Sai, which you can see a preview of in this other video that I made. But anyway, we'll move on to the next size, which is Pebbles size. So this is the 1/4, but more specifically the slim mini size, because there is also an MSD size, which is like a chubbier version. So she is not quite. So within 1/4 size dolls, there are roughly 3 main types. The first one is the generic. Maybe generic is not the right word. The first one is kind of like the Vogue's MSD size, which is meant to kind of be like a chow compared to like the 1/3 dolls here. So they are proportionately a bit more chubby, whereas the second type, which is what Pebbles is, slim mini. So like Unoa's, Mini Fees, those are usually slim minis. They are kind of like teenage to somewhat adult-ish. They're like not really children scale. but then they are not like the third type of MSD, which is mature minis. So mature minis would be like a doll that maybe looks like this, but is this size. So she's a slim mini, so she's kind of in between. So 1/4 has quite a range of such sizes. I forgot to mention for 1/6 dolls, YoSDs are not the only type. So there are also mature 1/6 dolls, meaning dolls that look like this, but are like 1/6. So like maybe this-ish size. It's not a thing that I am very familiar with, so I'm not going to talk too much about it. But for pebbles, or like this slim mini 1/4 size, I would say one of the biggest pros for her is kind of like somewhat similar to the YoSD, but it's a bit of an upgrade. So once again, light, easy to carry. I can hold her in one hand. Right, like, and because the doll itself is light, right? So when you hold them, they pose quite easily because they don't have to struggle as much against their own weight in terms of like lifting up their feet or lifting up their hands. So it's easier for her to do this, whereas for him, I mean, he can still do it, but if you want the big guy to do it, it's a bit more difficult because physically he does have a weight. So, you know, gravity pulls on him harder. Gravity is much less. I mean, gravity is the same, but it has a lesser effect on her, so she's easier to pose. And the same issue with clothes sort of applies with the slim mini size. So similar to YoSD, I feel like for female dolls of this size, it's easier to find clothes. It's a bit more difficult if you want to buy clothes for male dolls. But luckily for me, Pebbles is... I kind of have Pebbles because I like the clothes in this size. So... yeah, so her benefit is really that she's kind of catered specifically for the fact that I like clothes that are in this size and I like that I can buy them. And they're a bit different than the other clothes that I have for the rest of them. So it's quite fun for me to buy stuff for her just because it's a change from everything else. So I also know that minifigs are very popular with a lot of collectors. I would say the only reason maybe why this size is not my favorite size is really the fact that most of my OCs are male and it's easier to find kind of the kind of sculpts that I like and the kind of youthfulness or age that I like in the 1/3 size, because I feel like even within slim minis, the dolls do look a bit younger unless I go all the way to mature minis, but those were not really a thing when I first started the hobby. So I've kind of started in... Gabby's my first doll, right? So I've kind of started in this 1/3 range. And by then, smaller dolls like 1/4 minis are kind of oddly scaled compared to them. And like I said, I don't have a lot of aged OCs, so there isn't really a reason for me to get into that. So Pebbles is kind of special. Sai is also kind of special in that they are not from the same story universe as most of this. Actually, no, she's from the same universe as him, but they are kind of in a fantasy world, so it doesn't really matter that they're not the same size because they're not really the same species. But most of my 1/3 dolls are humans. So, yeah. Okay, moving on to 1/3. So I'm dumping 65 together with 60. There's some slight differences, but I'm just going to talk about them together as 1/3. So like I said, it's my favorite size in general because yes, they get a bit heavier, not say quite. It really depends on how strong you are, but I would say they are definitely heavier than she is. But Gabby, 60cm is still relatively easy for me to pick up. He's a bit more difficult for me to pick up, but I can still do it with one hand. I just need to not be so far away from the bed right now. So for me, they are still relatively easy to handle, but I do know that for some people, they could be a bit too heavy to handle comfortably, especially I know a lot of older collectors tend to prefer smaller dolls like this and mini fees because it's easier to handle, it's not so heavy. So that could be that. But for me, this is like a good size for where I am right now. And the sculpt range, there are a lot of sculpts available for this. And I think it's kind of like the OG size, like it's when a lot of it's where initially there was a lot of sculpts in this size. So that's kind of where I had the most choice. And then I kind of got shoehorned into this size. But I mean, I like it. So for the wanted, like the 60cm size, it's a bit harder to find clothes for him now because it's not the most popular wanted size. 65 is probably the more popular wanted size at the moment. So it's relatively easy to find clothes for 65cm boys, but it's a bit harder for him. When I first started the hobby, this was a much easier size to find clothes for, so I do still have clothes from that period. So like I said, because I don't sew my own clothes that often, the availability and ease of finding a certain style and size of clothing is quite a big factor for me, on top of like the actual ease of handling them. So the other thing that I do like is that because I do most of my own face-ups, I would say this is a good size for me to put in more details. It's not so difficult. Most of my brushes are actually bought to kind of work best with this size. I can do it on her, but my brushes are slightly big. But I would say definitely 1/4 size hits are easier and lighter to hold. 1/3, depending on the doll, sometimes they get a bit heavy to hold for long periods of time when I'm doing a face-up. But overall, it's not too bad because the larger face allows me to put more details, which is fun. I would say also I find this size nice to hug. So one thing that I do sometimes is when I'm watching a show on my computer, I have them seated at my desk or I'm holding them in my lap. So I find that this is a good size to sit comfortably in my lap. I kind of feel like I'll crush her if I put her in my lap. So this is a nice size for me to hug. And they do get heavy after a while, but it's not too bad. Whereas this guy, I don't want to put in my lap because it's very heavy. So he mostly just sits at the desk if he's watching TV with me. So this is kind of my favorite size. And then lastly, we have this dude who is a 74cm doll. So honestly, I am not a big fan of this size. Like I said, this is kind of the limit of what I can comfortably handle and dress and all that. So I don't know whether you've noticed, but besides the fact that he also doesn't have that much clothes compared to the rest of them, I don't really do dress up videos with this guy because he's so heavy and hard to maneuver. Like, oh yeah, by the way, this outfit just straight up doesn't close for him, even though it's meant to be HID size. But like, because I cannot hold him this way, right? Like, I don't have a grip on him. Like, it is a struggle for me to hold him. I need two hands, which I can't do right now because I'm holding a mic. So I can't actually move him unless I use two hands. So that is a bit of a pain for me. But I have the reason why I still have this 175cm doll. I sold the other 75cm head that I had, the other easy stage head, but I still have him because I really like this face and I really wanted the HID body. So like, if it's just one doll, I can handle the fact that sometimes I need two hands to move this doll and dress him and all that stuff. But if I have more than just this guy, I don't think I can handle it. So that's why there's only one of him. And I would say actually that this size, maybe not this buff, but like, well, there is a camp of people who like this buff 75cm, but the Zoom Idealan 75cm, I think, is probably a more popular size than this is. And there is a wave of doll owners, a lot of Asian doll owners who like the 75cm size. So there is actually quite a lot of like clothes available. I won't say it's as much as this range because this is a much more well-established size range, but there is definitely a group of people who really like 75cm dolls, so there is more of a market for clothes and stuff for them as well. But for me, the main problem with this size is really how difficult to handle it is in terms of like weight and just physical size. But I think this is really a personal preference kind of thing because I do have friends who like this size because of how heavy they are. So it's kind of like a very comforting weight if you put them in your lap to watch TV with, for example. But for me, it's kind of the other way. I don't like that weight, so that's why this is the only 75cm doll I have. And Peps and Sai version 2 are the two slim mini dolls I have, whereas these guys I have like what? I think I have 8 or 9 of these guys. So yeah, so that's what I wanted to talk about today for BJD sizes, my thoughts on the different sizes, and my own personal preference. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye.